The story begins in a cruel world where the weak lose money and status. In this terrible world, the weakest could even lose their lives. That's why someone like him was about to be swallowed by a giant monster. His fate was to perish, simply because he lacked the power to survive. But everything changed about 100 years ago when a beam of light struck the planet. With that, this mysterious light began to consume everything living on Earth. The planet, once full of life, had now become a great tome of sand. The few humans who survived had to create small strongholds. Inside a vehicle, a young man complains about how they should have just destroyed everything at once. Suddenly, a large man slams his head against the vehicle's window. Then the brute says with a smile that his hand just slipped. The aggressor then asks for the boy's name so he can apologize properly. The young man looks at him and replies that his name is Xian. At this, the big guy and his friends start to laugh and make fun of the young man for having only one name. Xian remains silent with a hateful glare, but the bully notices his irritation. The man says that the people on this bus to the mines aren't real miners. He then asks what the boy did to get caught, whether he's a criminal or a fugitive. Without waiting for an answer, the young man stands up and lands a solid punch on the bully. With the force of the blow, the big guy flies to the other side of the bus. Xian stands up and says the man is far from the truth, and with a frightening look, he reveals that his crime was taking a life. He reflects that in Neo-Seal, only the powerful are considered people. The protagonist remembers a man he had defeated in a junkyard. He just didn't know that guy was the pet of someone important. On the ground, the man threatened him, saying his older brother was Lee Jae-young. Upon hearing that name, the young man was completely terrified. In this world, the powerful are called people, and the awakened are gods above them. Rumors spread that Lee Jae-young was looking for him all over the city. In that moment of desperation, the only solution he found was to get on the mine bus. Back in the present, the aggressor asks if the young man is done with his attack. But the aggressor gets up and, with a powerful blow, sends the protagonist flying. On the floor, the young man feels the pain from the brute's attack. The man reveals he's also there for the same reason, as the boy are running from someone. He shouts desperately, saying he fought hard to escape from an awakened one. With his body glowing red, he reveals to everyone there that he is an awakened one. The protagonist is surprised and is grabbed by the awakened one, who now faces him. Suddenly, the bus swerves sharply, causing everyone to lose their balance. One of the passengers, annoyed and hurt, yells at the driver to drive properly, but the driver seems to be unconscious, slumped over the vehicle's steering wheel. The man gets closer and tries to understand what the driver is mumbling. His eye is bloodied, and he seems to be in a total panic. The driver stammers, trying to warn them that they weren't going to the mines. The passenger is confused and asks what he means by that. Then, with tears in his eyes, the driver looks up in pure fear. He reveals they were being swallowed by a giant sand monster. With that, everyone on the bus panics as they fall into the creature's mouth. Sinking into the sand, the boy remembers his life has been a series of failures. He recalls his childhood in Neo-Seoul, and when he encountered the awakened one. Now he screams as he's swallowed by the sand, unable to do anything to escape. The protagonist thinks that in this world, it's natural for the strong to take everything from the weak. His demise is just a consequence of his weakness, and he accepts this end. But such a cliché and obvious story makes him want to yawn at this moment. He imagines that if he were a little stronger, he wouldn't be perishing now. His hand sinks slowly into the sand, and his end seems inevitable. His last fingers disappear into the desert's darkness, leaving no trace. The whirlpool of sand pulls him deeper and deeper, with no chance of escape. Suddenly, his eyes open in the darkness, and a strange light shines in them. Hands emerge from the sand and pull him down with a frightening force. The young man screams in pain and agony as he is smothered by the earth and darkness. Suddenly, his body begins to glow, revealing his skeleton and veins of light. After being swallowed, the landscape around him becomes a desert of rocks and sand. With wide eyes, the boy looks around, sweating nervously in desperation. Then, a strange vision appears, showing the Eiffel Tower destroyed and buried in the sand. He also sees a futuristic city in ruins, completely taken over by the desert. In his eye, a reflection shows the destruction as he processes the information. A huge structure begins to crumble, with sand falling from all sides. At this, a single tear runs down his face in the presence of so much desolation. The vision then expands, showing a desert planet surrounded by asteroids, and an intense light, like a star, explodes in the reflection of his focused gaze. At that moment, he awakens a new power, and sand begins to swirl around him. With his new ability, he fires a powerful blast from inside the monster. Even while down in the creature's belly, he decides that he will survive. Covered in the monster's fluid, he reaffirms his will to live in this world. Then the young man begins to walk out of the darkness, determined to make it out alive. His eyes now shine with a power and determination never seen before. Facing the monster's remains, he promises that he will survive, no matter what. In a desert, a young man feels a sharp, intense pain surging through his entire body. He feels every single cell in his body going wild, realizing that this is his awakening. Suddenly, a giant sandworm emerges from the ground right in front of him. Without wasting a second, the massive creature lunges forward to swallow him whole. But he isn't intimidated and challenges the monster to a fight. The scene shifts to a man shouting that the fallen boy is just a test subject and is getting in the way. At that moment, we see the determined look in the young man's eyes as he lies on the ground. Then, a mysterious force violently hurls him through the air. Upon impact, he crashes hard against the desert sand. Irritated, the boy wonders who this mysterious figure is that suddenly appeared. His face shows pure shock at the unexpected situation. Looking up, he sees the sandworm trapped by a dark, sharp substance. Then, a man with a giant sword appears and says he's going to bring the creature down. With a powerful kick, he prepares to send the monster back to the first floor. Just like that, the creature is crushed against the ground with brutal force. The first boy is completely stunned by what he just witnessed. The swordsman defeated the monster in a heartbeat and notices that the boy is going through an awakening. Watching everything, a blue-haired girl cheers, saying that's their captain. Meanwhile, her companion is terrified, wondering how the captain got there so fast. Soon after, he notices the captain is strong, but his own arm is starting to feel cold. The captain approaches and says the worm wasn't that tough, calling the girl Gazelle. He then shoots a serious look toward our protagonist. We see the captain staring at the first boy while Giselle holds her companion. Giselle responds with a cheerful salute and a smile. Suddenly, the girl rushes forward and knocks the protagonist down with a kick. She pins him to the ground, leaving the boy in a lot of pain. Then, the young woman says she's going to check the boy's rank and skill. However, when she looks at his arm, her expression turns into one of total confusion. She informs the captain that the boy hasn't awakened, which leaves the captain stunned. Desperate, she screams that he doesn't even have a rank badge. The other team member can't believe it, because an awakened person should always have one. From inside a vehicle, a man shouts for them to hurry up because the sun is going down. Giselle then asks the captain what to do with the boy, since he might not survive out there. The captain ponders for a moment with a cold and calculating gaze. Meanwhile, the protagonist waits for the decision with an apprehensive look. He decides to take him along, since the boy was heading to the mines anyway. With that, the group continues their journey through the desert in their military vehicle. In the car, the driver complains to the captain for always acting alone and making things difficult. Tied up in the back, the protagonist makes a sarcastic remark about the trip, while the argument continues. During the ride, a little sand falls onto his face. He notices a small stream of sand coming from a crack above him. The young man realizes the sand moves exactly how he wants and confirms he has awakened to power. But he wonders why they can't see his badge and notices the color is strange. Looking at his arm, he sees the mark is the same color as the desert sand. It is explained that the glow of a badge reflects an awakened person's affinity. Those who use magic, like Giselle, have a blue glow. Combat types like the captain emit a red glow. There are also rare cases with different and unique affinities. With this, he understands that his power is sand control, something brand new to him. Even if the system classifies him as rank F, he feels the infinite potential of his power. A confident smile appears on his face as he thinks about the possibilities. He decides he will wait and hide his skill until he truly masters it. His plan is to make the desert and the entire world his grand stage. Finally, the group reaches their destination, a massive mana stone mine. Protagonist observes the place and thinks the checkpoint looks normal for now. Then, one of the group members grabs him and tells him to follow without complaining. While he is led inside, the captain and Gazelle watch from a distance. The leader says something feels off, but the girl thinks he was just lucky to survive. However, the captain firmly disagrees and states it wasn't just luck. His expression shows that he is very suspicious of the mysterious young man. He looks back at the hole his attack left in the mountain. The captain regrets not asking the boy's name, but feels he will see him again. Arriving at the inner part of the mine, the place looks like a busy city at night. We see several people in a bar, eating and drinking just like in a normal city. A redhead points a weapon at him and tells the boy to shut up and wait for the boss. The young man asks if he'll be left there, and the guard asks if he'd rather take a hit. The guard then leaves him behind, saying he can do whatever he wants because nothing will change. Alone, he decides to look for something to eat, since he's starving. He then approaches a food stall to order something from the vendor. Suddenly, his eyes widen as he sees something on the wall. What he saw was a propaganda poster about lighting up Neo Seoul through hard work. The vendor offers him a drink and asks if the poster isn't inspiring. The man continues the conversation and mentions Neo Seoul's power source. The boy assumes it's magic stones, but the old man seems to have another answer. Pointing at the young man, the vendor says the power source is people like him. He calls them rats who do as they're told, making them the perfect energy source. Now sitting down, the old man comments that the boy knows quite a bit for a newcomer. He asks what it was like to be inside the worm, and the boy is surprised by the rumor. The man warns him of the danger, but the boy says he isn't there to run away, but to make money. With a smile, the old man says he'll show him something fun and points in a certain direction. He points to a shelf full of dusty boxes in a corner. The young man asks what that junk is, and the old man says it's his collection. With a sinister smile, he reveals that those are the remains of everyone who came to the mine. He explains that newcomers fear the mine because it has a reputation for breaking people down. Because of this, people sell everything they have just to delay entering the mine. But in the end, their money just disappears and nothing is solved. With that, they conclude it's easier to just let the mine consume you. The old man says that normal people leave a name, but trash only leaves trash. Then, he stares at the boy and asks what he is going to leave behind. The boy ignores the question and asks the price of the food, which is 10 sol. Shocked, the young man yells at the price, but the vendor says everything there is precious. With a smirk, the boy says he has no money and that the meat should be cheap. Suddenly, several men surround the boy and accuse him of trying to skip out on the bill. The group of thugs intimidates him with knives and cleavers in hand. The protagonist apologizes, saying he can't pay, but his gaze is defiant. Just then, he feels a strange presence approaching from behind. He slowly turns his head with an expression of surprise and tension. Then the old man asks if he didn't find it strange for an elderly man to have a shop inside the mine. A terrifying vision shows the boy surrounded by dark creatures with red eyes. With a wicked look, the vendor asks what he's going to do now. In his mind, the young man imagines himself slamming the table in anger. In the vision, he is tied up and begs for his life, saying he doesn't have the money. He keeps asking to talk it out, but the old man just looks down on him. The old man says he isn't cruel and that he accepts other forms of payment. He then points to the magic stone in the boy's pocket and says he likes it. The young man gets furious, realizing the old man extorts even the children there. But the vendor simply demands the stone to settle the debt. He refuses to hand it over, saying how hard he fought to get that stone. He tries to negotiate, but one of the thugs grabs him violently by his clothes. Then, the brute lands a powerful punch right in the boy's face. The aggressor shouts that they should just finish off the brat. The imagined scene becomes a beatdown, with the boy being pummeled on the ground. The crowd around them watches the violence of the scene in horror. With his sand power, he strikes back and blasts everyone away. His eyes glow with power amidst the darkness of his imagination. Back in reality, a thug grabs him by the head, calling out to him. The man asks if he was dreaming since he stood still for a while, and the boy gets annoyed. With that, the boy tosses the man a stone onto the table, much to the old man's surprise. He hands over the magic stone the old man wanted so badly. The old man analyzes the stone and is impressed by its size. He values the stone at 100 sol, but the boy says it's worth at least 300. With a furious look, the boy asks if he would have preferred to become worm food. In a quick motion, he pushes the stone toward the man. The protagonist thinks he could take out the old man, but decides it's not the right time yet. With a confident smile, he tells the old man to just give him some decent change. The old man warns him about thieves, and the boy says there's already one standing in front of him. Then the old man proposes that since it's his first trade, he can choose one item from the shop. The man points to a shelf full of junk and tells him to pick whatever he wants. But as he looks at the items, the boy realizes everything there is nothing but scrap metal. The old man observes the boy and finds him interesting for looking for something worthwhile. He is amused by the young man's vitality and his obsession with not losing out. Rummaging through the stuff, he finds a strange mask but quickly discards it. Then he picks up some glasses, and the old man says they were left by a caravan. But he finally makes up his mind and picks an old hourglass that was in the middle of the mess. The old man finds the boy's interest in useless things strange, but doesn't question him. On his way out, the protagonist asks what the vendor's name is. The man then shouts his name, which is Klexi, so the boy can hear him. With a mocking smile, the young man says he hopes to never see old Klexi again. Klexi just laughs and says they will still meet again in the future. Back in his room, the protagonist places the hourglass on the floor to analyze it. He watches the sand and notices there are about 10 minutes left before it runs out. In the miner's dormitory, he sits down and begins to concentrate. The boy then starts doing breathing exercises to calm himself down. With a focused gaze, he prepares to test the hourglass. With his eyes glowing, he holds the object and orders the sand to move. He stares at the hourglass with all his concentration, but nothing happens. Frustrated, he realizes the item has no connection to his awakening. The young man then reflects and says he's sure he's never seen that object before. But for some reason, he has a strange feeling that the item was made for him. He feels the object is familiar, and a new emotion arises within him. At that moment, his room door is kicked in by a furious man. The man screams at him and asks why he isn't in the mine like he should be. The boy introduces himself as Zeon and says no one told him where to go. In response, the man lands a violent kick that sends him flying. Then the aggressor clenches his fist and tells the boy to shut up. With a powerful punch, he knocks Zeon to the ground and pins him down. He holds him and continues shouting, asking if the boy thinks he's a joke. The man calls him trash and says he should take the beating quietly since he hasn't awakened. After a while, he stops and tells the boy to follow him quickly. Zeon stays on the ground, all bruised up, just watching the man. With a gaze full of hatred, he vows that one day he will take that man down. The aggressor takes him to the entrance of the Sector 3 mine. He tells one of the miners to give the equipment to the rookie. The miner warns that the cost of the equipment will be deducted from his daily pay. With a shocked expression, Zeon can't believe what he just heard. Suddenly, the aggressor grabs a pickaxe and smashes the boy's helmet. He screams that the cost of the helmet will also be deducted and calls him a piece of trash. Then he orders the miner to take the rookie to shaft 972. The brute threatens the miner, who gets scared and agrees to take Zaun. As they walk away, the man shouts that Zeon better not come out without mana stones. On the way, the miner says Zeon was unlucky because the aggressor lost everything gambling. Zeon is surprised to learn that there's a gambling den there. Once in the elevator, the boy comments that with idiots like that, business must be good. The young man complains that he'll have to use a pickaxe, but the miner reassures him. He says the boy doesn't need to worry because no one has ever been hurt there. Finally, they reach shaft 972, and the sight is terrifying. Zeon asks if he just needs to mine, and the man says he won't be coming back. He explains that more than a dozen people have disappeared there, and no one knows why. The miner apologizes and thanks him as the gate closes behind Zeon. He thanks Zeon for going to a place where no one else wants to go. Desperate, the protagonist screams that they're all dead and that he can't be left there. Alone in the dark shaft, he can't believe he was abandoned to die. With great rage, he begins to hit the wall with his pickaxe. In a moment of fury, the pickaxe slips from his hands and flies away. He panics and screams for his only tool to come back. Looking around, he wonders what kind of place he was left in. He then realizes the mana in the area is very dense and that he didn't feel it before because of his anger. The further he walks, the thicker the mana gets, and he wonders where it's coming from. Suddenly, he stops when he sees something glowing on the ground. With a shout of joy, he cheers because he found his pickaxe. Even though the handle broke, he's happy he found the tool. But while he celebrates, a red portal opens right under his feet. His eyes widen in fear as he sees the imminent danger. He screams in terror as he is sucked into the mysterious portal. During the fall, his helmet flies off and he disappears into the vortex. The only thing left in the area is the light from the helmet, illuminating the broken pickaxe. The scene cuts to a boy in the rain thinking Xion is a goner and has been abandoned. His mind takes him to the past, and he remembers when all he wanted was to never be hungry again. In another memory, he was running from a crowd because he just wanted to have a dream. He also remembers when his miserable life almost came to an end because of a fight. His life was a constant escape, and he just wanted to not have to worry about dying. The protagonist recalls all the difficult moments and how he only wished for a normal life. Back in the present, he wakes up lying on the ground in a totally unknown place. With a bad headache, he gets up and wonders why it's so hot. He then touches the ground and realizes that everything around him is nothing but ashes. With his face sweating, the boy is frightened by the appearance of that strange place. Then he remembers falling into a portal, and that could only mean one thing. Looking around, he realizes he ended up inside a dungeon. On the ground, the boy looks terrified at something passing by him at high speed. He then picks up a piece of the ground and complains that the place is way too hot. With that, the young man starts running while screaming that everything around him is burning. He realizes it wasn't a dream and remembers that in Neo Sewell, everyone prepares for dungeons. At that moment, he looks at the ash in his hand and fears his lungs will fry. The boy sits on the ash, covered ground, and adjusts his boots to keep going. He ties a cloth over his face and thinks that if there's an entrance, there must also be an exit. Then he spots a flaming mountain peak and believes the exit is there. With his face covered, he decides it's his chance to leave since there are no beasts nearby. The protagonist then plants his feet firmly on the ground, determined to take the shortest path. A mist sparks. He begins to run with determination toward the mountain, but he ends up tripping over a rock and falls face first onto the cracked ground. The young man stands up at the edge of a cliff and realizes he's in trouble. Desperate, he reaches out his hand to try and save himself from the imminent fall, but he slips and falls into an abyss with a river of lava at the bottom. Even injured, he holds on and says a silly trap like that won't scare him. On the ground, he breathes with difficulty, but doesn't give up on his journey. With a clenched fist, he shows that he won't surrender so easily. Filled with rage, he screams Park Man-ho's name and vows to get revenge. Standing up, he notices that getting angry is only making the place hotter, so he clenches his fist again and vows he'll get out of there alive no matter what. With a determined look, he prepares himself, saying there are only 4 left. Running toward the mountain of fire, he thinks there are only 4 leaps to go. With his face covered, he feels confident that he is almost at his destination. In one great leap, he pushes himself forward, determined not to stop. As he reaches out his hand, a mysterious voice orders him to stop immediately. Suddenly, a giant mouth made of stone and fire emerges from the ground to devour him. The creature closes its mouth and traps him inside its dark, rocky interior. Then, the stone monster disappears back into the lava ground. The only things left in the area are a few bubbles on the surface of the floor. Inside the creature, a giant eye opens and stares at him in the darkness. On one of the inner walls, an object that looks like an egg begins to glow, covered in a strange substance. He is surprised to see that the ash has melted. He cheers because his ability to absorb volcanic ash saved him. The young man manages to escape through a small crack and falls out of the monster. Lying on the ground, he complains that the heat in that place is unbearable. With a pained look, he feels like he can't breathe and his head is numb. Alone in the dark, he wonders if this will be his end. With his hand on the ground, he feels his strength slowly fading away. He laments that he will die there without ever having had a girlfriend. At that moment, a boot steps firmly on the rocky ground near him. Wrapped in shadows, he begs for the Lord of the Underworld to take sinners in his place. The view from below shows the massive mouth of the stone monster opening again. The boy screams in pain as he is enveloped by mysterious shadows. Terrified, he hears a voice and wonders if it's the Lord of the Underworld speaking. He looks up, shocked to hear the voice say that his skill is interesting. A mysterious figure then drops from the sky toward the monster. A wicked smile appears on the face of a white-haired old man. The red-eyed old man falls at high speed toward the ground. With his hand outstretched, he prepares for the impact with the monster. With a look of madness, the mysterious man continues his free fall. The protagonist's eye widens in fear as he sees the old man approaching. The man lands with a violent impact that shatters the ground all around. With his foot, he easily crushes the stone monster's head. Debris from the creature flies everywhere after the attack. The young man is thrown back by the force of the explosion and screams in shock. He covers his ears and wonders if his eardrums burst from the noise. Still dazed, he worries about what happened to the creature. He then sees the old man standing over the remains of the stone monster, touching the ground. He realizes the old man's power isn't from an ordinary awakened person. The imposing man amidst the fire shows that he is on a totally different level. Slowly, the old man begins to walk toward him with an air of menace. He stops in front of the boy and calls him for a talk. Then the mysterious man asks what the young man's name is. With a smile, he tells the boy to answer before he counts to 3. Without hesitation, the old man begins the countdown. Starting with the number 3, the count continues, and the man gets even closer to the terrified boy. The number 1 reflects in the eye of the boy, who is paralyzed with fear. The old man says the answer is incorrect, since he didn't say anything. When he raises his weapon, the boy realizes his hearing has returned. With his eyes glowing red, the man simply tells the boy to die. Desperate, the protagonist begs for his life and says he doesn't know what's happening. The old man asks his name again, and the boy screams that his name is Zeon. The man mocks the name, and the boy retorts that the old man's name isn't that great either. A beam of light cuts through the air and destroys the rocks around them. The old man grabs Zeon's face and says his name is Deoden. Confused, Zaun asks what exactly the man is doing to him. The young man complains that Deoden keeps threatening him and calling him a fool. Angrily, he asks what he did wrong to deserve this treatment. The old man explains that Zeon's disrespect was falling into a trap. He says that traps form when a dungeon's mana gets overloaded. Because of this, the dungeon opens a rift to release mana and pulls in anyone nearby. Deoden laughs and says Zeon is very unlucky to have run into one of those. The boy screams at the old man and tells him to stop calling him a fool. Deoden grabs his face and says he's going to show him why he is a fool. He tells Zeon to focus mana in his eyes, and the boy obeys. The old man tells him to stop using his eyes and start feeling the mana. Through his mana vision, the boy sees the silhouette of a monstrous creature. Shocked by the sight, he asks Deoden what that thing is. The old man reveals that it's a beast with stealth abilities that attacks without being noticed. With a serious look, he asks if Zaun didn't feel any sense of danger. The boy realizes that if it weren't for the old man, he would have died without knowing it. With a grateful look, he thinks that the old man saved his life twice. Zeon stares at the man and wonders just how great his strength is. The young man asks what Deoden is, and the old man calls him slow for asking again. The protagonist screams and asks who he is to have so much power and where they are. Deoden answers that they are in a dungeon that is now his hunting ground. With a smile, he tells Zeon to use his eyes and see for himself. A detail on the old man's armor reveals the word clean engraved on it. The camera pulls back and shows the landscape of the fire dungeon where the two are. Suddenly, he feels a sharp headache and wonders what's going on. With wide eyes, The boy questions what the old man just did to him. Then he screams in terror as he sees a swarm of fire creatures flying toward him. At that moment, he hears Deodan's voice calling him a fool amidst the chaos. The old man then says that if the boy is worth anything, he must survive on his own. Deodan walks away and leaves the young man alone to fight one of the beasts. The creatures surround him, and he complains that the rascals are way too fast. With an agile move, he manages to dodge a high-speed attack that brushes past him. In a leap, he evades another charge that almost hits him head-on. Surrounded, he complains that the beasts are too fast and only attack his left side. The boy tries to fight back, but is overpowered by shadow tentacles that grab him. Several fire creatures with bat wings fly toward him to attack. He is hit by several blows in a row and screams in pain from the impact. Lying on the ground, he realizes he can't keep up with the enemy's speed. In the darkness, he is attacked from all sides and thinks he's going to die there. He remembers that the old man has already saved him twice and that he can't die like a fool. Suddenly, he hears a voice in his mind and gets confused, not understanding what it is. The old man appears and says his ears are hurt and he can't hear properly. Determined, the boy decides he needs to find a way to see the enemies. Mid-attack, he remembers Deodan's words and tries to think of something. He recalls the moment the old man said he'd show him why he was a fool. In his mind, he hears instructions to gather magic power in his eyes and purify the mana. With his eyes glowing, he concentrates on feeling the mana around him. One of the fire creatures lunges toward him with glowing red eyes. Although surrounded, the boy seems calmer and more focused than before. He understands that he needs to use magic power to see, not just his eyes. Using the mana, he manages to predict the attacks and plans to counterattack. With a precise punch, he hits one of the beasts and wonders if the old man planned this. He continues fighting and wonders if Deodan foresaw everything that would happen. In the distance, he sees the old man fighting giant monsters and wonders who he is. Deodan laughs and says it's been a long time since he felt this excited in a fight. With a sword strike, he cleaves the ground and creates a lava explosion. With an insane look, he screams for more and more challenges to face. He dares the monsters to attack him with everything they've got. In the blink of an eye, he appears in front of a giant stone monster. After defeating the creature, he calls it a huge disappointment. With his flaming sword, he deals a powerful blow to another beast. Standing among the defeated monsters, he complains about the lack of challenges in dungeons. Zeon watches everything in shock and says he almost feels sorry for the monsters. He walks through the battlefield and is speechless at the destruction. With a relieved smile, he asks if those were the last enemies, but his expression changes as he realizes he was wrong and that he already knew it. The lava floor begins to bubble and shake violently all around him. The boy is hit by a shock wave and screams in pain from the impact. He falls to the ground with his whole body aching, not understanding what happened. Deodan then explains that that was the roar of the dungeon boss. A giant creature's claw emerges, and the old man says every dungeon has a boss. A dragon enveloped in blue flames emerges from the lava, and Deodan says he came for it. Zeon recognizes the creature and is terrified by the boss's size. With a confident smile, Deodan says the monster finally appeared. He prepares for battle and calls the creature the Crimson Drake. The old man explains it's not a real dragon, but it's at least rank B. Hearing that, the boy is amazed because if it's true, the mana core is valuable. The Drake is surrounded by a force field, and Zeon recognizes the skill. The old man is surprised he knows, and Zeon says Class B monsters develop traits. He explains that a red force field means a combat specialization, and a blue force field like that one indicates the creature is a magic type. The Drake then fires a giant ice crystal toward Deodan. Zeon screams that that's totally unfair, and that the monster is a magic type. With a single strike, Deodan creates a cross of energy that destroys the crystal. The boy is left open, mouthed at the ease with which the old man defeated it. He realizes that all his experience and knowledge mean nothing there. Before Deodan's strength, he feels useless and powerless. The old man charges forward and attacks the Drake's head with a downward strike. The creature defends itself with its sharp claws and blocks the attack. Diaoden's sword collides with the drake's claws, creating sparks. With a battle cry, the man continues to press the beast with his strength. The drake opens its mouth and prepares a point-blank energy attack. The old man just smiles mockingly at the monster's attack. With a punch, he pushes the energy back into the drake's mouth. With a sadistic look, Diaoden asks the creature if that hurts. He holds his weapon and says he'll be the one to put an end to that pain. Then he declares that today will be the Great Crimson Drake's funeral. The protagonist realizes if he doesn't get out of there, he'll be the one buried. Desperate, he starts running away while the battle destroys everything around. He is hit by the fight's shockwave and is thrown far away. In the air, he screams as he is hurled by the force of the explosion. Fallen on the ground, he complains that the shock waves are insane. With a face full of rage, he tries to shield himself from the gale. Diaoden laughs crazily and screams that the fight is so much fun. He asks the drake if this doesn't feel like an amusement park. The battle between the two giants causes a huge explosion of fire and rocks. A new shockwave spreads across the battlefield at high speed. The boy is paralyzed with fear, seeing the wave of destruction coming toward him. With a look of panic, he prepares for the inevitable impact. He is swallowed by the shockwave and tossed into the air like a doll. His body rolls across the ground several times before finally stopping. He flies over a cliff and falls into a deserted area of the dungeon. Lying on the sand and covered in blood, he looks at the sky in shock. In his eye, you can see the reflection of the intense battle still raging on. From the ground, he watches Diaoden continuing his relentless attack against the drake. The old man laughs and taunts the creature, asking if that's all it's got. He calls the drake a disgrace for lowering itself that way. The creature begins charging a large sphere of energy in its mouth. Diaoden looks interested and wonders if the boss knows how to do something like that. The drake fires a powerful beam of energy that cuts through the air. The attack travels at high speed, destroying everything in its path. The creature roars while firing its most powerful attack. He looks to the side and asks if someone was looking for him. A red and black blur passes through the destruction and approaches quickly. The beast's mouth opens as it prepares yet another energy attack. Diaoden says he's spent a year in the desert to capture the creature. He reveals he wants to forge the Klean sword using the monster's heart. With his eye glowing, he says that's enough and tells the creature it's over. The old man's sword remains plunged into the ground, releasing massive energy. The weapon explodes in a mix of blue and red energy that hits the creature. Then the sword begins to transform and glows with an intense red light. The weapon's details change completely as it takes on a new form. His reflection appears in the sword fragments floating around him. The sword finally completes its transformation and takes on an intimidating appearance. With a quick motion, he grabs the hilt of his powerful new weapon. With a crazy smile, he praises his Klean sword for becoming so strong. Xian watches from afar and thinks the man is a crazy old guy for talking to a sword. Diaoden sees him and calls him a fool, asking how he managed to survive. The boy answers that he did, but admits he almost kicked the bucket in the battle. In a flashback, he remembers the moment he was thrown by the explosion. He remembers lying on the ground, all bloody and without any strength. In his mind, he relives the despair of almost not being able to save himself. The young man recalls the pain of being hit head-on by the shockwave. The force of the impact tossed him like a feather far away from the fight. Back in the present, he thinks he survived again and considers himself persistent. He says his reflexes improved with the shockwaves, and the old man praises him. Diaoden warns him that the dungeon is going to collapse, and they need to leave. The boy is confused and asks why the old man is holding him like that. In response, the man just lets out a loud, wicked laugh. Then he throws him into a hole and says goodbye, calling him a fool once more. While falling, the boy curses him and says he's worse than that jerk Park Manhwa. He lands on his back on the sand outside the dungeon. The portal closes, and he slides through the desert sand, spitting everything out. The old man comes out of the portal and explains that the rift created by the collapse is the exit. With a serious look, the man tells the foolish boy to listen to him carefully. He says he needs his skill, but since he is weak, he will give him a choice. He points in a direction and asks if Xian wants to go back to his old life in Neo Seoul, or if he'd rather follow him to become a better fool than he is now. Confused, the boy asks what he's talking about and how long he'd have to follow him. The old man answers that he doesn't know and that it could take months or decades. With a frightened look, the boy stares at the man, who tells him to choose now. The choice is between a comfortable life or a gamble with a 99% chance of going wrong. With their faces side by side, the old man tells the boy to finally make his choice. With a grin, he finds the idea of having a choice pretty funny. He then points to the old man and asks if he's completely lost his mind. The young man questions why he should give up a good life to wander the desert with the man. With a serious look, Deodon confirms that's exactly what he proposed. The young man then says if that's the case, there's nothing more for them to discuss. To the old man's surprise, the boy turns and says he'll follow him. He explains that he's a vengeful person, but since he's weak, he can't do anything yet. With a smirk, he says the old man is also on his list. Zeon admits that Deodon is the strongest person he has ever met in his life. The man smiles and asks if the young man is sure he's going to meet his end. With a clenched fist, he says that if he follows him, he'll become the strongest of all. The old man warns him that one day, he'll regret being so sure of himself. Then Deodon starts walking, and the young man complains about being called an idiot again. The duo's long and tiring journey begins under the scorching desert sun. Completely exhausted, the boy yells and begs for them to walk slower. He drags himself through the sand, saying they've been walking for 6 hours and asks for a break. But the old man simply ignores him and continues his silent walk through the desert. Furious, the boy yells and complains about the mysterious man's mood swings. Sweating heavily, he realizes the temperature must be around 50 degrees. His feet sink into the hot sand, and he fears he'll get heat stroke at any moment. Deodon calls him a complete idiot for not using even 1% of his power. He says it's pathetic for the young man to have power over sand and still struggle to walk. The boy yells that it's easier said than done, since he only awakened his power a short time ago. With an indifferent look, the old man just stares at him and asks, "So what?" Zeon tries to explain that he's just a rank F, and the old man becomes furious. He grabs him and yells at him to stop with this rank F or S nonsense. The man asks if people are born rank S, saying they're just blessed. He yells that just because he isn't blessed doesn't mean he should give up. With his back to the old man, the word blessed echoes in the young man's mind. He then tells the boy to stop complaining and think about how to use his ability. The young man clenches his fist, realizing that this is his very own ability. The old man advises him to figure out how to use his power on his own so he can grow. With a light punch on the arm, the man encourages him to figure out how to use his power. He threatens him, saying if he doesn't figure it out, he'll be done for, and the young man yells that he gets it. His foot sinks into the sand, and he begins to concentrate to start his training. With that, he focuses and begins to control the sand surrounding him in the desert. He realizes his control has a 5-meter radius and is a little disappointed. He thinks that if he solves the problem of his feet sinking, he'll save a lot of energy. With that, he decides to compress the sand under his feet to make it firm. Then he celebrates because he did it, and now walking is much easier, but he soon realizes the mana consumption is high, making it useless in the long run. He then tries concentrating mana in his legs, and the old man notices he's walking better. The man watches him intently and thinks about how great it is to be young. The boy falls face first into the sand, and the old man thinks that this is the privilege of the young. He notes that despite being rank F, the boy's mana control is already at an ED level. The young man celebrates his success, and the old man believes in his potential. He runs to the man and explains that he only controlled the sand right under his feet. With a smug look, he sticks his tongue out and boasts about walking comfortably. In response, the old man lands a powerful punch right on top of his head. Lying in the sand, the man tells him not to waste unnecessary energy, or he'll meet his end. The boy passes out from the blow, and the old man desperately yells for him to wake up and breathe. Waking up, the young man finds himself in a dark place and wonders where he is. The old man says he's awake, and that because of him, they lost a lot of time. He notices his body is covered in wounds, and eats what the old man gave him. He then looks at the food and sees that it's nothing more than simple dried meat. The man tells him to eat while he listens to a story from his youth. He says that in the old days, people protected the weak and survival was easy. The old man says the world has changed and he could never get used to it. Then he says that if the boy doesn't want to perish, he better get up on his own. The boy sits up and throws the rest of the meat away, saying he got the message. He stares at the man, thinking about the story he just heard. He thinks that the old man has lived a long time and gathered many memories over the years. He notices the man is softening the meat with his saliva, not chewing it. The boy understands this is the best way to eat in the desert and imitates him. He reflects that the old man is teaching him how to fish, not just giving him the fish. They start walking again, and the young man thinks that he's never even seen a fish in his life. Night falls and the boy asks for more meat, but the old man tells him to be quiet. Suddenly, he sneezes and starts shivering from the intense night cold. He complains that he completely forgot that desert nights are freezing. He remembers not being able to sleep because the old man was talking to his sword by himself. The boy complains of thirst, and the man wrings out his own clothes to get water. Angrily, he realizes the old man kept that secret all to himself. He understands that the man spread his clothes on the ground to collect the dew. He swears he'll get his revenge, and the old man calls him an idiot again. As always, the young man corrects him, saying he's an imbecile, and the man asks if he can feel it. Confused, the boy looks at the sky and asks what he's supposed to be feeling. He then looks around and feels a strange vibration coming from the ground. With a frightened look, he realizes it's not just one or two vibrations. Suddenly, they are completely surrounded by several red-eyed creatures. The old man identifies them as large, horned hyenas and says they are nocturnal. Then he asks if the boy can survive on his own, or if he needs help. One of the hyenas growls furiously, preparing to pounce at any moment. With a confident smile, the young man says he doesn't need any help from the old man. He stands before the horde and yells that he'll handle this and survive. His eyes glow brightly as he uses his ability to control the sand. With one motion, he creates a wave of sand that sends the hyenas flying. With his eyes glowing, he focuses completely on the fight that is about to begin. Then he creates giant sand spikes that take out several hyenas at once. He yells in frustration when he sees the huge number of enemies before him. He fears running out of mana and being defeated, and realizes he needs a plan, fast. Facing the horde, he thinks he needs efficient attacks and mana control. He holds the hourglass and tries to think of how to fight using less mana. A hyena approaches while he's distracted, and the hourglass glows faintly. He punches the creature and calls it a coward for interrupting his thoughts. He feels a strange sensation in his arm, as if there's a wind hole. Blood trickles from his arm, and he wonders what a wind hole is. The horde of hyenas rushes toward him for a massive, coordinated attack. Alone, he braces himself to face the pack that is quickly approaching. Suddenly, he gets an idea and realizes he just needs to make a few holes. With his ability, he creates small sand vortexes near the hyenas, laughing wildly. He says a hole is just as effective as taking them out completely. In battle, mana is linked to life, and wasting it only speeds up your demise. He understands the fight needs to be efficient, using as little mana as possible to win. With an insane laugh, he attacks the hyenas slowly, one by one, to save his power. Meanwhile, Deoden gets bitten by a hyena, but he just laughs and says it only tickles. Annoyed with the beast, he calls it a mutt and takes it down with just one hand. He says he can't let a dog that bites people live, and tells them all to attack. With a scary smile and his eyes glowing, he prepares for the takedown. The boy panics when he sees the old man is going to do that again to the creatures. With a furious cry, the powerful man says this will be a real beatdown. Deoden then strikes with his sword, creating a huge shockwave. The attack is so strong it sends Zeon and the hyenas flying with the gust of wind. The boy can't believe the old man's strength and notices there are people nearby. On the ground, a huge crater of devastation is the only thing left. He wonders if the old man is even human, and if that's possible without an ability. Hearing a bark, he realizes he needs to be discreet, as one false step means the end. He finds Deoden sitting on a giant hyena and identifies it as the alpha female. The creature grows furiously as its body is covered by an aura of lightning. The man is surprised to see the force field and realizes the beast is rank B or higher. With its electric power, the giant hyena prepares to attack the old man with everything it's got. Desperate, the protagonist yells for the old man to watch out for the creature's attack, but the old man just faces the lightning attack with a calm and confident gaze. The young man is completely confused and wonders if the old man is out of danger. He says the electric attack just tickled a bit and that it felt good on his back. With that, he says the message is over and, with a shout, tells the creature to go down. In a swift move, he strikes the giant hyena with overwhelming force. The boy laughs and thinks it's better for his mental health to just ignore that monster of a man. Wearing the hyena hide, he asks the old man if they can leave now. The old man explains that the hyena's horn is useful and can be made into a good weapon. Then he throws a dagger to the boy and tells him to catch it quickly in mid-air. He says that from now on, the boy will have to find his own food by himself. The old man warns that the hyena's muscle is toxic, but the flank meat has no toxins. Deodon then yells at him and tells him to hurry up because the sun is about to rise. With a shout of, "West, sir," they continue their journey through the rocky desert. The protagonist eats the dried meat, happy as can be, humming about how good it is. He thinks he's a little thirsty, but at least has plenty of food. Thanks to his new sand step ability, walking is now much easier. He teases the old man and asks if he's jealous of his new ability. The man doesn't like the teasing and gets ready to punch the boy again, but this time, the boy is faster and manages to dodge the blow with a jump. Deodon knocks him down and complains that he's getting cocky just because of a silly ability. The boy complains it was just a joke and that he's dying of thirst in the desert. Suddenly, he feels something strange in the air and realizes it's a feeling of moisture. He realizes it's not his imagination, because the old man is also looking at the same spot. In the distance, they spot an oasis, and the boy can't believe what he's seeing. The desert landscape stretches for miles with its endless dunes. The two walk over a sand dune towards their destination. With a smile from ear to ear, he celebrates seeing something he's only heard about. They finally arrive at the oasis, and the boy runs towards the crystal clear water. The strong sun continues to shine over the vast and silent sand desert. In a hurry, the two descend the dune to finally reach the water. The boy shouts with joy that it's real, and that he's seeing the oasis with his own eyes. With his arms wide open, he runs towards the oasis to cool off from the heat. He celebrates and wonders how many days it's been since they had fresh water. The old man just watches the boy's joy with a displeased expression. With a shout of, "Finally!" he runs as fast as he can to the water. He dives into the water and enjoys the refreshing sensation with a peaceful smile. With a sigh of relief, he feels the cold water seeping into his entire body. He thinks that after so many days, the coldness of the water is a relief from the heat. But as he relaxes in the water, his eyes widen in surprise at something strange. He sees a bright, warm light underwater and wonders what it is. Suddenly, he starts to feel an uncontrollable drowsiness, and his eyes feel heavy. A voice yells at him to get a grip, calling him a wretched fool once again. The old man runs towards him with an expression of fury and concern. With a quick movement, he pulls the boy out of the water before it's too late. A giant monster that looks like an anglerfish emerges from the oasis water. He grabs the boy and throws him far from the creature to save him from danger. The huge creature, with its light on its forehead, faces the old man, ready to attack. The boy screams as he is dragged away from the water and the giant monster. Deodon prepares to face the creature and protect the young man once again. With a firm hand on the hilt, he prepares to draw his sword for battle. He attacks the monster with a powerful blow that sends water flying everywhere. The boy looks up at the sky and realizes that the things he only heard about are truly insane. He then understands that the oasis was actually nothing more than a mirage. The old man explains that it's a sand mouth that attracts its prey with the light. With a look of disappointment, he turns to the boy who almost fell for the trap. He then punches the boy in the face for his lack of attention to the danger. The old man yells at him and asks what he did with everything he taught him. He warns him that fools like him are the first to go down in this desert. The boy just nods his head, and the old man sighs, tired of the situation. The man then turns and tells the boy to skin the creature he defeated. He explains that the skin from the monster's belly is perfect for making cloaks. The boy asks if the old man needs a cloak, and he sighs again. He yells that it's not for him, and asks why the boy's intelligence is dropping. With an embarrassed smile and some blood from his ears, he just apologizes. The old man says the creature has changed, but that it looks like the fish from Earth. He says the boy has never seen a fish, and that he should take a good look now. With wide eyes, the boy admits it's the first time he's ever seen a fish. He holds his dagger and thinks to himself that fish are pretty scary. The old man teases him, but the boy gets annoyed and says he'll do it all by himself. He realizes the monster's skin is tougher than he thought and prepares himself. To solve the problem, he concentrates on using his mana on the small dagger. He infuses mana into the dagger's blade to increase its cutting power. Then he cuts off a fin to use as a needle and begins to sew. Using the creature's sinuous thread, he carefully begins to sew his new cloak. Suddenly, his eyes light up with a brilliant idea that pops into his mind. Lying on the monster, the old man complains that the boy has turned the fish into trash. But the young man says there are still plenty of materials and that he'll try again. Night falls over the desert, and the starry sky illuminates the dark landscape. He finally finishes his cloak and celebrates, shouting that it's complete. After 8 failures, he finally finishes his cloak and asks if it's good enough to sell. The old man just calls him an idiot, and the boy refuses to hand over the cloak he made. Deodin tells him to stop talking nonsense and offers him an organ to eat. The boy asks what it is, and the old man explains that it's a monster's gallbladder. With a scary face, the man threatens him, saying that if he doesn't eat it, he'll be done for. The old man rushes the boy, and he reluctantly touches it, wishing the man's arm would fall off. With a determined look, he finally agrees to do what the old man told him. He then bites the organ, saying it's medicine and that it's better than getting beat up. With the organ in his hand, he is confused by the sensation and wonders what it is. He keeps eating and feels that it's like a cloud that never satisfies him. The young man finishes eating very quickly, and the old man calls him an idiot again. Sitting by the fire, the man says that now it's time to burn it all away. The boy doesn't understand, but a red aura begins to appear on his chest. Suddenly, the boy starts screaming desperately, feeling immense pain. He screams that his body is on fire and that the sensation is much worse than flames. The young man feels his body and man is spinning out of control and that he's going to explode. From a distance, the old man just watches and tells the boy to endure the pain he's feeling. The man looks at the creature and says that, like the Osis, all of this will disappear. He explains that even so, the sand monster is reborn and returns again. The master says this is the cycle of life, but the boy just curses him out of pain. The young man yells at the old man to stop being sentimental and just save him. The older man then turns and faces the boy with a serious expression. Amidst the screams, the master just tells the boy to shut up so he can sleep. Sometime later, the protagonist wakes up in the sand and wonders where he is now. The old man appears upside down and asks if the boy finally woke up. Startled, the boy falls backward and yells at the man for scaring him. The old man asks if he slept well, but the boy corrects him, saying he passed out. Then the master asks how his body feels, and he says it feels the same as before. But he soon realizes that's not true, and that his body feels as light as sand. His muscles have become hard as steel, and his mana is raging like a storm. He wonders what happened to make him suddenly so much stronger. The old man then reveals that it was all thanks to the sand monster's gallbladder. It contains the power to withstand the sun and sand, and is valuable to caravans. The young man is shocked and asks if it was right to give him something so precious. The master yells that he only did it because the boy is weak and needs to be more useful. The boy says he understands, and the old man tells him to be quiet and eat the rest of the monster. The sun continues to beat down in the desert sky as they finish their meal. Next to the skeleton, the old man says they ate for 4 days and that there was a lot of meat. Then he calls the boy to continue their journey as the wind blows strongly. With a confident smile, The protagonist is ready to continue his journey. The young man yells, "Yes," with great excitement, and the old man watches him with a smile. But as they walk, a huge sandstorm begins to form. In the middle of the storm, the boy continues walking calmly with his hood up. He says that thanks to his ability, the storm feels like just a cool breeze. But he notices the old man is walking without even resting along the way. He thinks that the master hasn't said anything for days and makes a joke about his age. He realizes they've been walking for 2 weeks and wonders if the old man knows the way. Just then, a giant insect monster appears, and he wonders if the old man has gone crazy. Without a second thought, he punches the creature in the face and tells it to shut up. He sighs and wonders how much longer they have, but suddenly he feels something strange. His eyes widen in surprise as he senses a presence approaching. The insect he punched is still standing, and he realizes the creature is quite tough. The old man thinks that he was hoping to pass straight through, but that this time it will be difficult. A quick scan shows they are surrounded, and that the monsters aren't playing around. The boy gets ready and says that if they're going to fight, they might as well show up now. He thinks he needs to be quick, or the old man will finish him off before the monsters do. With that, a horde of red-eyed insects advances toward him. He uses a blast of sand and says that they're following his orders well. A huge sand explosion is created by the young boy's attack. He walks along, saying that stormy days are good because there's sand everywhere. He realizes the old man has disappeared and shouts, calling him a coward for abandoning him. He continues cursing, saying that's why the old man walks alone at his age. Suddenly, he gets worried and wonders if the man heard what he said. Before he can apologize, his eyes widen with his 10-meter perception. He was always on guard, and this allowed him to react to any demonic beast. However, the presence he felt this time was a little different than usual. What Xian felt now was closer to pure terror than a beast. Suddenly, a gigantic swarm of red-eyed ants emerges from the sand. He can't believe the number of them and wonders where an army like that came from. Desperate, he yells for the old man and warns him about the absurd number of enemies. But Diodon is just sitting calmly on a rock far away. The boy realizes he can't act like a child anymore and cry for the old man. He understands it's impossible the old man didn't sense them and that this is a mission. With a smile, he says it doesn't matter if there are 1,000 or 10,000 because bubs are bubs. With this newfound determination, he charges head on into the swarm of creatures. In the midst of combat, he grits his teeth and fights with all his strength. With a powerful blow, he smashes one of the giant insects that was attacking him, but he gets surrounded and yells that he takes back what he said, asking how many there are. He calls them cowards for ganging up on him and challenges them to a one-on-one. With no chance to fight back, the boy is completely overwhelmed and carried away by the swarm. Using his power, he creates a sand explosion to break free from the creatures. The desert sand begins to move in a strange and frightening way. The boy then uses his power to create a pillar of sand and escape from the ground. Looking down, he realizes that it's literally an ant colony. He thinks about escaping upwards because he believes they can't fight in the air. But to his surprise, he's hit by something coming from above him. The ants then start climbing on top of each other to form a living tower. Terrified, he can't believe the creatures can do something like that. One of the ants manages to reach him and bites his leg with great force. With that, he is pulled down and falls back into the middle of the insect swarm. He hits the ground hard and cries out in pain from the impact of the fall. Exhausted and bleeding, he gets on his knees with no strength left to fight. Even injured, his face shows an unshakable determination not to give up. He looks at the old man, who continues to sit far away, just watching the fight. With a bloodied and insane smile, he prepares for his last resort. He yells for the old man to watch him closely and see how he survives. The master smiles, satisfied, and says that is the correct attitude for a warrior. He thinks the boy's ability is a blessing and that he could live well. But with a serious look, he adds that this would be the limit of his power. He says that the awakened must learn and develop their own abilities. He says that the awakened shouldn't be created in a factory, standardized way. The master then reveals that he still can't forget one thing from his past. He emphasizes that it's something he simply cannot forget. He remembers the great tragedy that happened over 100 years ago. At that time, he felt helpless watching many people perish before his eyes. He lost everyone he loved, including his colleagues, his family, and his daughter. With that, he felt like the biggest loser in the world for not protecting anyone. But the old man says the boy was different and didn't lose to the monsters. He says the young man can become anything, and for that, he must cross the line. With a confident smile, he says that as a result, the boy will become stronger. The boy will become even stronger than he is right now, at this very moment. With an insane shout, the young man tells the insects that they are all in for it. The swarm of ants then rushes towards him to attack him all at once. He creates a compressed sand missile, a simple but powerful technique. With a quick movement, he launches the powerful missile towards the swarm. He put gravity, wind, and all the energy he could into creating the projectile. With this, he manages to create a power that is dozens of times stronger. He screams insanely that with this attack, all the enemies are finished. Their mistake was not eliminating him before he could get stronger. From a distance, the old man calls him a punk for getting so excited about the fight. The young man continues his attack, surrounding himself with dozens of sand missiles. The vast desert stretches for miles with its rock canyons and sand. With a psychotic smile, he prepares to continue the takedown of the insects. He yells to the old man and asks if he's watching because he's going to take them all out. But suddenly, his expression changes completely, and he's shocked by something. A giant queen ant appears behind him without him sensing its presence. He dismisses its stealth and realizes the creature's attack had poison. Then he understands why his mana hadn't been well controlled for a while. With a cry of frustration, he curses the insects for using a dirty trick. In a swift movement, the creature attacks him again with its sharp claws. With his bloodied eye, he realizes the situation has gotten really bad for him. He wakes up in a dark place and realizes he's in the ant's nest. Lying on the ground and powerless, he hears a strange noise approaching him. With wide eyes, he realizes the noise was coming from giant larvae. The creatures then approach and begin to hold his arms and legs. One of the larvae gets close to his body and prepares to take a bite. He realizes his body won't move and that at this rate, he'll be eaten alive. With blood running down his face, he wonders what he can do now. He wonders if this is the end, and if his life is flashing before his eyes. One of the larvae makes a strange sound as it squirms near the boy. With a final effort, he manages to move his arm and punches the ground in anger. The adult ants nearby are startled by the sound of the punch. He continues punching the ground with all his might, while cursing his weakness. He yells that no good memories are flashing by, and that it's unfair to go out like this. Suddenly, the mark on his arm begins to glow with an intense, golden light. With that, a huge explosion of power emanates from his body, sending everything flying. The adult ants are thrown far away by the force of the energy blast. One of the creatures is hit head-on, and its body begins to break apart. The power is so great that the cave walls begin to crumble. In the midst of the destruction, the boy sits in a newly formed crater. He realizes his rank has increased, the poison is gone, and his mana is overflowing. Looking at his arm, he sees a new mark and confirms that he has ranked up. His power and mana are on a completely different level compared to rank F. Even with all this power, his eyes glow with an uncontrollable fury. He faces the Ant Queen and notices that she doesn't have a single scratch. With a powerful leap, he charges toward the creature for a new attack. He punches the creature, but it crushes the rock, and he wonders how strong it is. His punches continue to hit the creature's carapace, but with no effect. He yells in frustration because his attacks didn't even leave a scratch on the queen. With his hand on the ground, he understands he won't be able to win by fighting this way. He stares at the monster and thinks that no matter how much he attacks, it won't work. In that case, he needs to think of a way to break through that armor, a way to rip off the creature's armor without having to crush or pierce it. The creature screams as the boy wraps it in a powerful stream of sand. He has an idea if he can't break the armor, he'll twist it and tear it off. The queen begins to scream in pain as the sand compresses around her, but suddenly, a bright light starts to emanate from the creature's body. The light intensifies and creates waves of energy that spread throughout the cave. The boy screams in desperation and wonders what is happening. He realizes they are high-frequency waves, and that his brain is going to explode. The sound waves continue to emanate from the creature with an absurd intensity. He can't believe the creature was hiding this ability until the very end. With his eye glowing, he decides to fight with everything he has and challenges the creature. He says it doesn't matter if he or the creature goes down, because they'll see the end. The battle of endurance continues, with both using all their power. He yells that they'll fight until one of them finally hits the ground. In a dark space, he feels as if something inside him has broken. With a confused look, he wonders what is happening to his body. He starts to fall and wonders if this was his true limit of power. He curses himself for being so pathetic and weak at a moment like this. At that moment, the old man appears and agrees that he is pathetically weak. The master holds him and warns that he'll perish if he falls asleep there, calling him a fool. With a weak smile, the boy can only call out for his master. The old man laughs and says that at least the boy isn't completely useless. After all, the queen is down, and the old man says she was rank C, and he deserved to live. The boy says he can't hear because his eardrums were ruptured. Surprised, the old man gets excited and picks up the boy to take him somewhere else. The boy asks where the old man is suddenly taking him like this. The master takes him to a pit where a glowing object is floating. As he gets closer, he sees a glowing orb and asks what it is. The young man turns to his master and asks again what that object is. Beside it, a message says it's a queen's egg and that he must eat it. He reads the part that says it's a remedy and wonders if he's supposed to eat it. Looking at the glowing egg, he wonders if it's possible to eat something like that. He asks if he'll get sick like the time he ate the monster's gallbladder. The old man says he'll probably meet his end, but the boy can't hear him. Tired of thinking, he decides to eat it and says he won't go down just for this. He eats it and thinks that he doesn't know what strawberries taste like, but he'll find out. To his surprise, he yells that it's the most delicious thing he has ever eaten. With wide eyes, he looks to the side and wonders if there's another one. Suddenly, red spikes come out of his body, and he calls for the old man, not understanding. An explanation appears, saying the egg causes an inversion of the organs and intestines. The queen's egg is extremely toxic and turns the organs inside out of whoever eats it. Because of this, whoever eats the egg has their organs pierced by spikes and ends up perishing. Screaming in pain, the boy desperately asks what the old man gave him to eat. The old man complains that he's noisy and tells him to get used to it if he wants to survive. With puffed-out cheeks, he wonders how he could possibly get used to this. He then starts coughing uncontrollably, and a black goo comes out of his mouth. Looking at his dirty hand, he curses the situation as blood drips from his mouth. He remembers a happy moment and thinks that he could finally trust someone. Crying, he realizes that in the end, he was just an idiot for believing the old man. With no strength left, the boy then collapses on the ground, completely defeated. Meanwhile, the old man approaches the body of the ant queen he defeated. With a quick movement, he sticks a dagger into the giant creature's body. Then he rests his head on the carapace, as if he's looking for something inside. He then pulls out a huge, shining mana stone from inside the creature. Smiling, he says that a beast stone is different, and that he hit the jackpot. He says the ant will also be useful, and that he'll take all of it with him. With his giant sword on his shoulder, he prepares to continue his journey alone. But with a sad look, he turns and suddenly calls the boy his friend. He knows he can't do anything, and that the weak perish, because that is their fate. The old man stands in front of the boy's body with his sword in his hand. With a serious look, he tells himself that they don't have much time left. Suddenly, the young man wakes up in a dark place and wonders if he's still alive. The old man then appears and greets him cheerfully, calling him an idiot. With a quick movement, the boy stands up, creating a huge cloud of dust. The master calls him an insolent brat and asks why he is doing that. With a mocking look, he asks if the boy is actually being serious. The boy then attacks him with dozens of sand projectiles at high speed. The old man is hit and tells the boy to stop acting like an idiot and calm down. But the young man doesn't stop and attacks him with a giant spike, while asking why. The attack explodes, and the boy shouts, asking why the old man tried to get rid of him. With tears in his eyes and full of hatred, he screams again, demanding an answer. With his eyes glowing, he extends his hand and says he will never forgive him for this. Huge, sharp sand spikes are created, surrounding the older man. A wall of spikes forms and prepares to attack the old man with everything. But before he can attack, something throws him far away with an invisible force. Lying on the ground, he breathes heavily, his eyes glowing a purple color. He turns to the old man and asks again why he tried to do that. The old man explains that the egg has components that mess with people's brains. The boy is shocked to see that the man took all the hits and doesn't have a scratch. The master says he could take him out with a flick of his finger. So why would he use poison? Confused by the old man's logic, the boy just nods his head awkwardly. The egg is a lethal poison, but it also extracts all toxins and impurities from the body. He says the boy felt it, and that now the empty space has been filled with mana. With this, his mana has increased by 3 or 4 times, and he is much stronger. With an emotional expression, the boy can only call out for his master. Crying, he hugs him and apologizes for losing his head and doubting him. He cries and says he hates the old man, and that now he can hear again thanks to him. The master tells him to get off, but the boy refuses and says he didn't even try to use healing. With a tired sigh, the old man just agrees and calls him friend again. In his thoughts, the old man reveals that he could have perished and only just survived. He admits it was a gamble because the boy is useless if he doesn't get strong fast. He then picks him up and tells the boy not to forgive him for what he did. Confused, the boy asks why the old man is holding him like that again. The older man just gives a wide, toothy grin to the boy. He says that since they have no time, they need to get out of that place as fast as possible. The boy gets a panicked look on his face and tells the old man not to say what he's thinking. In the desert, some creatures that look like scorpions are playing peacefully in the sand. But suddenly, something explodes from the ground, sending sand and rocks everywhere. The old man runs at high speed and asks if this isn't faster, and the boy screams. Annoyed, the man yells and asks who told him to sleep for 4 days straight. He says the boy is weak but stops when he notices something strange on the horizon. The young man asks what it is this time and says that nothing surprises him here anymore. But when he sees what's approaching, he is terrified and starts to break out in a cold sweat. In the distance, they spot a colossal creature that looks like a stone turtle. The creature is almost 30 kilometers away, and yet its size is insane. The old man says they never get a break, and that it's the mobile fortress, Archelon. It's a rank B turtle beast, but with rank A defense, and they use it for transport. Shocked, he asks if they use the monster for transport, and the old man tells him to look. With wide eyes, he realizes just how vast the world truly is. The master says there are monsters capable of riding a beast of that size. The giant turtle passes by them, and the old man tells him to remember this scene well. Suddenly, a small figure jumps from the creature's back at high speed. The person lands right in front of them, creating a small crater with the impact. The newcomer says he expected it would be him, and Deodan tells the boy to stay quiet. With his monocle, the man says it's been a long time since they last saw each other. The man with the white beard and an eye patch then calls